Hello, welcome or welcome back to Life on the Franch. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a heroic, true story about our apartment. And before I begin, I want to give you some details, some context for those of you who are new. Welcome. Uh, so I have three hamsters, Butter, Rocky, and Patch. This is going to be relevant in a moment. And some of our content is about them, and others of our content are cooking or crafts or just kind of our life. And we post every day. But I've never posted like a story before, really, like except for like a health update about Butter. So I'm not really sure how this is gonna work. But here we go. So we have these hamsters, right? And I'm out, okay? I've got my mask on. I'm not in the apartment. Stan's in the apartment. Stan is my partner if you're new. Stan's in the apartment working from home. Thank God. And he hears a clunk, a clattering coming from the bookshelf. Which is odd because there was not an earthquake. We don't live in California. We live in New Jersey. And so he goes over there to investigate what made the sound, right? Because things had kind of shifted on the bookshelves, a couple things had fell. What's going on? So Stan so first, Stan sees all of a sudden something slowly moving on the ground. And then he realized it was a snake. And not only was it a snake, it was a pretty big snake. Pretty thick, all black, and about 3 foot long, would you say?
Yeah, something like that.
3 foot long. Okay. Now, I don't know if you know much about hamsters or snakes, but a 3 foot long snake can definitely eat a hamster. And I know this because my dad used to have snakes and it would eat mice. Also to mention, we don't have a pet snake. So this isn't a loose snake of ours. It's just a new snake. And so I get a phone call from Stan. He's freaking out. He's swearing, like I can hear things crashing around in the apartment on the phone call, and he calls me up and he's like, there's a snake in our apartment. What do I do? And I'm like, well, you gotta get the snake out. And he's like, how am I gonna get the snake out? And I'm like, we have 3 hamsters in our apartment. You cannot leave the apartment until the snake is out. And I'm like the type of person who doesn't like, I don't kill like things that come into the house. Like if there was a mouse in the house, we would like humanely trap the mouse and release it. So that's like my goal with the snake. Which is easy for me to say because I wasn't there. So Stan grabs the utensils we have to capture a snake in the apartment. Okay, so this is what he grabs. He grabs kitchen tongs. The kind. And this bin, this plastic bin that we had just ordered and gotten for to make a bin cage out of, but then we didn't end up using it. But we literally just got this bin. So we happened to have an empty plastic bin with a lid, big enough for the snake. So the snake starts slithering, you know, trying to get behind the bookshelf to presumably wherever it came from. So Stan had to move the whole bookshelf, and then you can see its tail sticking out. He sent me a picture of the snake sticking out from the wall, basically, of our apartment. And I'm looking up snakes in New Jersey, right? I'm out of the apartment, I'm doing my part. I'm like, okay, we need to know if this is venomous or not, because you should not go at a venomous snake with kitchen tongs on your own. Leave it to the professionals. Call 911. I don't know. So I look up all the New Jersey, snakes in New Jersey, and the all black ones are all non-venomous snakes. So I'm like, well, I mean, it could bite you, but you'll survive. So just, grab it with the tongs. And Stan does not like snakes at all. So he's a little reluctant, but he's going for it, right? He has to be brave for the babies. So he starts trying to scare the snake to get the snake to come back out, more so he can grab it with the tongs. And he's kind of got the bin over here, bin in one hand, tongs in the other, poking at the snake, to get it out, and eventually grabs the snake with the tongs and puts it in the bin, puts the bin upright. Okay? Now, the snake is larger than Stan had realized initially. And that's when we find out it's this 3-foot plus snake. And if you're interested, I think it is either a black rat snake or a black hognose snake, based on my research findings, which is, Google, and a very blurry picture. The snake starts to slither up the side of the cage. Okay? And I'm like, Stan, you gotta put the lid on. So Stan slams the lid down on this cage. And he takes he's like, okay, well, what do I do? I've got the snake. What are we doing with the snake? And this is where the identification of the species of the snake came into play. Because hognose snakes are actually commonly kept as pet snakes. So we thought that perhaps it was a snake, from our neighbor, right? Because it came through the wall, so maybe it's our neighbor's snake. Okay? Which would have made me feel slightly better, but also worse at the same time. But regardless, so I have Stan go over, and he knocks on the door. He's got, did you bring this? Did you bring the? No. So he goes over, knocks on the door of our neighbor, and goes, do you own a snake? Neighbor's like, no. And Stan's like, all right, bye then. Comes back. Mind you, we don't talk to our neighbors because it's New Jersey. So presumably the snake came in from the outside. Because our heat has gone out a number of times this winter, and they've been doing some patchwork, so there's a hole in the wall outside, there's a hole in our thing. We think it got through that way. Okay? It doesn't really matter. It's all patched up now. Our maintenance people are great, so there shouldn't be a snake in the future, is what I'm trying to say. But I have anxiety, diagnosed anxiety. So in my mind, there will be. But anyhow, so Stan takes this snake. And I'm like, well, you gotta release the snake. It's a wild snake. You shouldn't keep a wild snake in captivity. It's mean to the snake. It's used to its freedom. And especially since it's a native species of New Jersey, right? If it was a non-native species of New Jersey, it might be different, and then we could look into like facilities that take care of snakes. But on the walk to that we released it in a park, like 1.5 miles from our house. So as he's walking to the park, the snake is curling up to him, for warmth. And Stan's starting to get attached to this snake. So he calls me back, and he's like, hey, now that the snake's calmed down, it's really kind of cute, and you've been watching these snake videos lately, and you've been researching snakes, would you want to keep the snake? And I'm like, we have 3 hamsters, and it's a wild snake. No. You can't have, well, maybe people do, but I could never have hamsters and snakes in the same place. Okay? That is too dangerous. So anyhow, Stan released the snake. Snake is living happily in the wild in its native environment. That's the end of the story for the snake. But it's not the end of the story for me, because now I'm in a panic that we're going to have more snakes. And so while Stan's been releasing this snake, I spent $100+ buying next day prime, lids, upgraded lids for our hamster tanks. Because I was worried that maybe our lids, weren't secure enough to prevent a snake. Like, they're secure enough to prevent a hamster escaping, but are they secure enough to prevent a snake from entering? Is that something you hamster owners have ever considered? I had not considered this prior to the snake incident. So I was not exaggerating when I said that I spent $100 on Amazon for next day shipping for snake-proof hamster toppers. So this is the largest box I have ever gotten from Amazon. This is the bin we captured the snake in. But more importantly, for hamster owners out there, I can now definitively tell you which cage topper you could buy to fit a tank that didn't come with a tank topper that is snake proof. Or at least in my eyes, not snake proof. I cannot guarantee anything. But what I will say is this one, okay, this is the Fresh Air screen cover with center hinge. Now, while very nice for feeding your hamster, like if you had it on the tank like so, you can, oh look, feed the hamster, get the hamster out. That's really nice. Wow. But you know what else can open this? A snake. This practically has wings, okay? And not today. Not today. So I went with the Zilla Fresh Air screen cover without the center hinge. It doesn't say without the center hinge, but it's without one. And that's this one. And we're also going to be putting this underneath this because it does fit. And why have one level of protection when you can have 2? And my personal feeling is if the snake can get through 2 layers of protection, we're dealing with Chambers of Secrets level snake. Okay? And I just realized that we've been living the Harry Potter series lately. So this is like Chamber of Secrets edition, but our video yesterday about Butter's health is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, because that vet gave her the elixir of life. I love Harry Potter, but I'm not a fan of this basilisk, crap. So that would be cool. But let me show you the cage topper we got for Butter. So I bought her the Zilla Fresh Air screen cover for the dimensions of this 40-gallon tank. It's a little loose. Like, see how I can fit my whole finger up here? So I'm thinking snake, right? Bam. Okay. But this prevents the snake from pulling this, the second level of protection, out. This is, the original lid. So it opens like this. And then this fits on top of that. And again, if it's a basilisk, we're all petrified anyway. Back to the story. That's the story of the snake that was in our apartment. And I'm not the hero of the story. Stan is. Stan gets the credit for the heroic actions. He's behind the camera. And if you enjoyed this story, give it a thumbs up. If you appreciated Stan's heroic effort to save our hamsters like I did, give it a thumbs up. If you're glad that it didn't happen to you, definitely give it a thumbs up. Anyhow, comment down below what's like the weirdest animal that's gotten into your house, or anything really. What would you have used to prevent a snake? What would you have grabbed the snake with? Tongs seem like the best option, but at the same time not good enough. So let us know in the comments down below what you would have done in this scenario. And if you want to support our community and keep up to date with all of our lives, not just this individual story, click subscribe and join our community. But I hope you have a wonderful snake-free day. Bye!